Hi guys, this is Mike and welcome to my newly rebranded channel. It's no longer all about a friend online. From now on, this channel is called
with two eyes.
Despite the new name, I will still continue to give you honest and detailed reviews of all things guitar related. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. Subscribe! Okay, so today we're making a Strat shootout and I have 4 brand new guitars here and 1 older model. I made this chart for you guys, let's take a look.
As you can see, my older Fender Deluxe Lone Star Strat isn't sold anymore, but I still wanted to have it in the shootout to see how it compares to these newer guitars. Everything else is rather self-explanatory, I think. About the shootout, it will consist of 3 parts. In the first part I will give you my impressions on these guitars and I'll start rating them. Part 2 are the comparison samples, and the last part is my personal opinion on these instruments. And speaking of the rating categories, you can see these in the last rows here. So we have look and feel, factory setup, playability and hardware. As you might notice, there is no sound category, and that's because sound especially is so subjective. Also, after playing these guitars for a couple of days, I think they all do different things better or worse in my opinion. Like, one sounds great when played in a funky style, another one shines with distortion, and yet another one sounds great clean with a little bit of delay or something. But you will hear that for yourself in the samples and can make up your own mind about that. Okay, so let's start rating these guitars, and let's start with the cheapest one and work our way up to the most expensive one.
Okay, so the Fender Player series has a really nice weight to it and a really beautiful finish. Unfortunately, on my exemplar, there is a small scratch on the back and something that looks like silver paint or finish, and I just can't get it off. The neck is not the greatest either. It has really sharp fret edges and generally feels kind of cheap. I played a Fender Squier Classic Vibe once and the neck felt very similar to this one. Also, do you know the feeling that when you hit a chord and you can just feel the wood vibrating and moving and breathing and you can actually feel the sustain in your body? This guitar doesn't have that, or at least not much. So there is light and darkness here. But considering the price of this guitar, I'm still giving it 3 out of 5 points in the look and feel category. I think that's fair. Factory setup is good, with nice and low string action and just a little bit of fret noise. Intonation is not the greatest though. I'm still giving it 3.5 points in the factory setup category. Playability is okay as soon as you get used to the really sharp fret edges. The neck does feel kind of cheap, but the low string action kinda makes up for it. So I'm giving it another 3.5 points in this category. Hardware is above average, with bonus points going to the modern tuners and the modern 2-point tremolo system. Everything is solid, everything feels very sturdy, nothing is wobbly or anything, so that's great. No S1 mod is kind of a bummer though, and of course I would have liked a bone nut or a pop-in tremolo, but I guess you can't really expect that at that price point. So I'm giving this guitar 4.5 points in the hardware category. The Fender Deluxe Lone Star Strat is like 10 years old and it was made in Mexico, just like the Fender Player Series Strat. It has aged well, I would say, and it still feels great, even when compared to more expensive instruments. It has a nice weight to it and feels solid overall. Plus, it has a lot of twang, or let's call it sustain, even when you play it dry, not connected to an amp. The look? Well, I personally wouldn't buy it today again in this color combination, the 3-tone sunburst. I think there are a lot more interesting finishes out there. So for looks, I would give it 3 points, but for the feel of it, I would give it 5 points. Let's meet in the middle, 4 points in the look and feel category. Factory setup, I will not rate. Obviously, that's not a new guitar. Playability, well, obviously I had this guitar for years, so I'm really used to it. Plus I had it set up by a professional, so the string action is really nice and low. But even today I sometimes wish that the neck wasn't lacquered. I guess it's a very thin lacquer, but it's still noticeable and it does tend to get sticky after a while. But it's still a more comfortable neck to play than on the Fender Player Series Strat, and so I'm giving this 4 points in this category. The hardware on this thing is solid, and I had never any problems with the pickups or the bridge, the tremolo, the controls, the pickup selector switch, the tuning heads. Of course, it doesn't have any extra features, no S1 mod here, no pop-in tremolo, no bone nut or anything, so it's very old school kind of like. And you can't even coil split the humbucker, which I sometimes wish it had, but I'm still giving it 4 points for the hardware. The Fender American Performer Strat is a really nice looking instrument that actually feels very similar to my Fender Deluxe Strat Strat. The weight is almost the same, and the neck, although it's a maple neck and not a rosewood neck, feels very similar too. My exemplar has no flaws in the finish or anything, but kind of a funny looking neck. It's almost like tiger stripes. I'm still undecided if I liked it or not, but the look and feel is definitely above average, so that equals 4 points. Factory setup is good. String action is a little bit higher than I would like it to be, but at least there's almost no fret noise. 4 points for this category. Playability is hindered by the high string action a bit, but even in this state it's a very good playing guitar. Another 4 points. The hardware. I checked everything and everything is working perfectly. I guess because this is an American made instrument, I would have wished for maybe a bone nut or a modern 2-point tremolo system, but we don't get that. At least they thought about the S1 function, which in my opinion is a great addition to the standard Strat sound. I really like it. So this guitar gets 4.5 points in the hardware category. The Fender American Professional Strat is just a beautiful looking instrument. I mean, you have to like transparent finishes, but I just love that you can see the wood through this. Plus, the feeling when holding it and playing it, it just feels like $1,000,000. Plus, this is the guitar with the most twang or sustain when you play it dry. When you hit a chord, this thing just vibrates and goes on forever. It's beautiful. Hallelujah! Also, this is the heaviest guitar in the shootout, but I actually really like this chunky feeling. So we have our first high score, 5 points for this beauty in the look and feel category. Factory setup wasn't as great, unfortunately. The strings are too high up, plus we still have some light fret noise. 3.5 points in this category. The playability suffers a little bit because of the higher string action, and you definitely have to get used to the neck. So the neck is thicker than on the other guitars. They call it a modern deep C neck, whereas the other guitars have a modern C neck, right? So it's a little bit thicker, but you can get used to it. And I'm still giving this guitar 4.5 points in this category. The hardware on this thing is great though. We have a bone nut, we have modern tuners, we have a modern 2-point tremolo system. No S1 function is a bummer, but still 4.5 points. The new Fender American Ultra Strat I actually wanted to try out in either the Mocha Burst or the Plasma Red Burst finish, but they weren't available. So I'm not a huge fan of this blue finish, but I can appreciate that it's crafted perfectly. There are no scratches, errors or mistakes anywhere to be seen. It's not as heavy as the American Professional, which is a good thing or a bad thing depending how you look at it, but the neck alone is a dead giveaway that you're holding a very expensive instrument in your hands. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a lot of twang or sustain when you play it dry, not as much as the Fender American Professional, but I'm still giving it 4.5 points in the first category. The factory setup was great, no complaints there, 5 points. The playability of a guitar is directly connected to its neck, and this neck, in my humble opinion, is a game changer. The shape of it, the rounded edges, the ultra Saturn finish, this might be one of the fastest necks that I ever played. 5 points in this category and no questions asked. And the hardware again can only be described with perfection. So we have locking tuners, we have a bone nut, we have a 2-point modern tremolo system with a pop-in tremolo arm. We have soft touch knobs here. These knobs are so soft I could touch them all day. And of course we have the S1 mod. Everything is stable, everything is solid. 5 points for the hardware. Okay guys, so that was the first part in the shootout and you're seeing the total score up on screen. Next up will be the comparison samples, and after that I'm giving you my personal opinion on these instruments. Stay tuned.